Let's start all over again. Turn on some sounds for the people, please. All right, here we go.
A Senate race now a spectacle.
There we go.
He chose money over his conscience.
My opponent, John Fetterman, by his own admission, grew up in luxury and privilege.
Insults stealing the spotlight while voters want a voice on the issues.
I'm thinking about women's rights.
Unity of the people.
I'm looking for civility.
I think public health is most important.
Our leaders are not leaders at all.
Tonight, Lieutenant Governor John Fetterman and Dr. Mehmet Oz face to face for the first and only time. Both men looking to prove they have what it takes to represent the people of Pennsylvania.
Send Dr. Oz back to New Jersey.
I stand for Pennsylvania values, and I'm proud of it.
Live from the ABC 27 studios in Harrisburg, this is the Pennsylvania U.S. Senate debate. Welcome to Debate Night in America. I'm Leland Vittert from News Nation. The stakes tonight could not be higher, not only for the Keystone State, but for the country. Control of the U.S. Senate for either party runs through Pennsylvania. Dennis Owens, WHTM political reporter and anchor here in Harrisburg, along with Lisa Sylvester from WPXI in Pittsburgh, will moderate tonight's debate. We want to welcome our viewers watching tonight from across the country on News Nation. Voters can watch this debate in all 67 Pennsylvania counties on 9 television stations serving the Commonwealth. Before we get started, let's go over tonight's rules. Mr. Fetterman, Mr. Oz, you will have 60 seconds to answer each question. If there's a follow-up question or rebuttal, you will have up to 30 seconds. Each candidate will also have 90 seconds for a closing statement. When your time is up, you'll hear this bell. Gentlemen, thank you for being here. Dennis and Lisa.
Thank you, Leland. Good evening, candidates who moments ago just met for the first time. We're happy to have you here. Welcome to our audience watching at home, on air, online, and on News Nation. And we encourage everyone who is watching tonight to share your thoughts on social media. Remember to use the hashtag #PaSenateDebate.
And you may notice these large monitors that are behind us. This is part of our closed captioning system. It was requested by John Fetterman to help him process the questions that we are asking him tonight, and approved by both campaigns, and both candidates can see the monitors.
One of the screens will show only the questions being asked tonight. The second screen will caption the questions and responses from Mehmet Oz. We have live, experienced captioners in studio to ensure we are as accurate as possible in what's sure to be a fast-paced program.
And just a note, for those of you using closed captioning at home, the captions you see are not tied to the captions that the candidates will see here tonight.
Thank you, Lisa. With that, let's get started. Mr. Fetterman, we're going to begin with you. Your political experience includes serving as the mayor of Braddock, a small borough near Pittsburgh, and 1 term as lieutenant governor. You're running for a seat that could decide the balance of power in Washington. What qualifies you to be a U.S. Senator? You have 60 seconds.
Hi, good night, everybody. I'm running to serve Pennsylvania. He's running to use Pennsylvania. Here's a man that spent more than $20 million of his own money to try to buy that seat. I'm also having to talk about something called the Oz rule, that if he's on TV, he's lying. He did that during his career on his TV show. He's done that during his campaign about lying about our record here. And he's also lying probably during this debate. And let's also talk about the elephant in the room. I had a stroke. He's never let me forget that. And I might miss some words during this debate, mush 2 words together, but it knocked me down, but I'm going to keep coming back up. And this campaign is all about, to me, is about fighting for everyone in Pennsylvania that ever got knocked down, that needs to get back up, and fighting for all forgotten communities all across Pennsylvania that also got knocked down, that needs to get back up.
Thank you very much, Mr. Fetterman. Mr. Oz, you are a doctor, a businessman, and television personality. But this is your first run for elected office. What qualifies you to be a U.S. Senator from Pennsylvania? You have 60 seconds.
I'm running for the U.S. Senate because Washington keeps getting it wrong with extreme positions. I want to bring civility, balance, all the things that you want to see because you've been telling it to me on the campaign trail. And by doing that, we can bring us together in a way that has not been done of late. Democrats, Republicans talking to each other. John Fetterman takes everything to an extreme, and those extreme positions hurt us all. Let's take crime as an example because it's been such a big problem. Maureen Faulkner accompanied me today to the studio. You know that her husband was a police officer in Philadelphia, was brutally murdered. John Fetterman, during this crime wave, has been trying to get as many murderers convicted and sentenced to life in prison out of jail as possible, including people who are similar to the man who murdered her husband. He does it without with the rest of the parole board agreeing. He's doing it without the families on board. These radical positions extend beyond crime to wanting to legalize all drugs, to open the border, to raising our taxes. I want Washington to be civil again. We need it to be less radical. John Fetterman, unfortunately, would bring that.
Mr. Oz, thank you. Lisa.
All right, gentlemen, on to the economy. Pennsylvanians are struggling to put food on the table and gas in their cars. Our Nexstar Emerson College The Hill poll shows the economy and inflation are the biggest concerns for voters. 39% of them listed that as the top issue. Beginning with you, Mr. Oz. You have blamed President Biden and reckless Democratic spending for the inflation crisis. But voters would like to hear your specific plan to cut spending. Please explain in 60 seconds.
Well, if you ask the U.S. government, they'll tell you they have 4% waste and fraud. Now, I've traveled over the Commonwealth and spoken to countless people. There was a lady in Beaver County at a county fair who told me with fear in her heart that she wanted to provide food for her son's highly nutritious chicken she wanted. She couldn't afford it anymore. That's a big problem. If we've got 4% waste and fraud, we ought to be able to take care of that. John Fetterman's, however, response continually is to raise taxes. He raised taxes as mayor. He tried to raise taxes as a lieutenant governor, 46%. That's a big tax rate. He supported Joe Biden's recent tax rate increase, and he's done that without paying his own taxes 67 times. I'll say that again. He hasn't paid his own taxes 67 times, but he's raising mine and yours. Those are radical positions. They're extreme. They're out of touch with the values of Pennsylvanians. And I can make the difficult decisions, as you do in the operating room as a surgeon. I'll make them cutting our budget as well to make sure we don't have to raise taxes on a population already desperately in pain from the high inflation rate.
Mr. Fetterman, I will allow a 15-second rebuttal. He has specifically said you have not paid your taxes and that you want to raise taxes on Americans. How do you respond?
Absolutely. The Oz rule, of course, he's lying. It was helping two students 17 years ago to help them, buy their own homes. They didn't pay the bills, and it got her paid, and it has never been an issue in any of the campaign before. It was all about nonprofit.
All right. Thank you, Mr. Fetterman. Continue.
All right. I would like to share my take on that. I know that Mr. Fetterman is struggling with having gone through a stroke, and I don't want to discredit the man for that. But Dr. Oz already is looking better, and it's more than just health. I have to say his arguments are already proving to be strong. On the taxes of John Fetterman and having not paid his taxes and raised taxes on others, it's concerning. I need to do some homework on that. I need to figure out where these things chew and how was that. How do you deal with that? How do you answer for that in itself? Taking into account the condition of our economy today. So I'm gonna let the candidates continue. Let me remove myself from the camera. All right, let's keep going.
Continuing with you, Mr. Fetterman, your opponent has criticized Democratic spending, as you heard. Has the Biden administration overspent? And if so, where do you think spending should be cut? You have 60 seconds.
No, here's what I think we have to fight about inflation here right now. That's what we need to fight about inflation, right now, because it's a tax on working families, and Dr. Oz can't possibly understand what that is like. He has 10 gigantic mansions. We must push back against corporate greed. We must make sure that we're also pushing back against price gouging as well, too. We also be able to make more in Pennsylvania and make more in America. When he had a choice to make his merchandise the Oz label is on, he made it all in China. Who can you believe that can fight against inflation and pushing back against corporate greed, or somebody that is choosing working in China versus over American workers?
All right, I will allow a 15-second rebuttal to his comments that you have been making things in China. Mr. Oz.
I've been trying to talk about policy issues with the people of Pennsylvania. As a doctor, I listen to their ideas and I want to talk about them. When John Fetterman brings up houses, the irony is he didn't pay for his own house. He got it for $1 from his sister, and he hasn't been able to earn a living on his own. He's lived off his parents. So it's not a topic that we should be debating on the stage. We should be talking about crime and inflation, the issues that are hurting Pennsylvanians that they're talking about at their kitchen table.
No, that's he got his Pennsylvania house from his own inlays from $1.
Mr. Fetterman, we have to continue on. We'll continue on with a follow-up question to you, Mr. Oz. This one is just for you. You tweeted in August.
Man. Oh, wow. Dr. Oz rebuttal. Man, this John Fetterman is in trouble, because if these things are true, as a Pennsylvanian, I'm a little bit concerned. I'm just concerned. All right, let's keep going.
August that you will never stop fighting to lower gas prices for Pennsylvanians. Does that include supporting a suspension of the federal gas tax? You have 30 seconds.
I'm supportive of reducing taxes, but we want to be thoughtful about the long-term game plan to get gas taxes down and, frankly, all energy prices down. I have gone around the Commonwealth. I've witnessed people say, I'm not going on vacation this year because I can't afford to pay to take my trailer to the campground. They can't even get there. What we have to do is ensure that we don't have increased inflation, and the best way to do that is reduce gas prices. John Fetterman has gone after the energy industry, called it a stain on Pennsylvania, and argued we have to ban fracking. That is disconnected from Pennsylvania.
Thank you, Mr. Oz. We will get to the issue of fracking later on in this discussion. But meantime, turning back to you, Mr. Fetterman, for a follow-up. In an op-ed for the Wilkes-Barre Times Leader, you wrote, quote, "It is time we crack down on the big price gouging corporations that are making record profits while jacking up prices for all of us." How do you plan to do this, sir? You mentioned going after price gouging corporations. How do you plan to do this? You have 30 seconds.
Yeah, exactly. We have to keep pushing back on that. And he would never make that choice to fight for families here in Pennsylvania. He has never met an oil company that he doesn't swipe right about. He has never been able to stand up for working families all across Pennsylvania. We must push back. Inflation has hurt Americans and Pennsylvania's families, and it has given the oil companies record profits.
All right. Thank you, Mr. Fetterman. Turning to the next issue, Dennis.
The minimum wage in Pennsylvania and at the national level currently sits at $7.25 an hour and has not been increased since 2009. Each of our neighboring states has raised minimum wages. You see them there on your screen, including New Jersey at $13 an hour and West Virginia at $8.75. But Pennsylvania has not followed suit. The first question is for you, Mr. Fetterman. Do you support raising the federal minimum wage to $15 an hour? Why or why not? You have 60 seconds.
Yeah, I do, absolutely. I think it's a disgrace at $7.25 an hour. And how can a man, with 10 gigantic mansions, has unwilling to talk about a willing wage for anybody? Imagine a single mom with 2 children, trying to raise with them, realizing making $31,000 a year, $15 an hour. I believe every work has dignity, and every paycheck must have dignity in it as well. True, I've always supported a living wage, and we make sure that everyone has economic security.
I have a follow-up for you, Mr. Fetterman. What do you say to small business owners who have told us that if the minimum wage were increased to $15 an hour, it would put them out of business? You have 30 seconds.
Now, we all have to make sure that everyone that works is able to, that's the most American bargain, that if you work full-time, you should be able to live.
I appreciate the fact that the moderator asked the question again, because John Fetterman seems to just focus on taking a jab at Dr. Oz on that one. He didn't really answer the question. So I appreciate. I was like, why is he saying that? Because he's not answering the actual question that he's being asked. So let's take a listen to that again. I think that was really, really done. Well done by the narrator for bringing it back.
Dollars an hour, it would put them out of business. You have 30 seconds.
Now, we all have to make sure that everyone that works is able to, that's the most American bargain, that if you work full-time, you should be able to live in dignity as well, true. And I believe they haven't have any businesses being you can't have businesses being subsidized by not paying individuals that just simply can't afford to pay their own way.
Okay, Mr. Fetterman, thank you. Mr. Oz, turning to you. Do you support raising the federal minimum wage to $15 an hour? Why or why not? You have 60 seconds.
I think market forces have already driven up the minimum wage. I was with a hotel worker actually here in Harrisburg a few months ago, and he was telling me how hard it was to live on the $15 an hour that he was getting paid. John Fetterman shoots too low. We want much more money than that. And there are many ways to achieve that, but John Fetterman thinks the minimum wage is his weekly allowance from his parents. He's not really cognizant of the real challenges of business owners who've got to balance that with employees. Thankfully, we have a solution. And John, you didn't answer the question. You can't put businesses out of commission in order to pay more wages, because the wages will go to zero, which is John Fetterman's radical plan if you really follow it to conclusion. Here's what I would do. We have one of the richest energy states in the country. I believe if we could unleash the energy beneath our feet here in Pennsylvania, there'd be plenty of money to go around. We'd have increased wages, a more reason for students to take vocational classes, to be able to learn trades, which I'm strongly supportive of. We'd also be able to pipe that gas, improve our economy, and reduce inflation. That's a plan that works, and it's humble enough that I can say broadly.
Thank you. I want to give you, Mr. Fetterman, a 15-second follow-up to what he just said about you.
Now, again, it's remarkable. He hasn't really had any answer that he actually had about that in his. He doesn't want to talk about having somebody having a living wage and having somebody able to survive. Again.
And I want to come back to you now, Mr. Oz, for a quick follow-up. What do you say to those Pennsylvanians that he just spoke of that are trying to survive on $7.25 an hour, which is less than all of our neighbors? You have 30 seconds.
Oh, I don't think you should have to survive on $7.25 an hour. I want the minimum wage up as high as it can go. I want to highlight that I have an agenda for prosperity, unlike John Fetterman. I want us all getting paid a lot more than $15. And I answered your question directly in a way that would preserve business owners, job creators, so they thrive, and we'd have lots more employees entering the workforce and then prospering, getting paid $25, $35, $45 an hour. But we're never going to get there if we don't unleash our energy. And John Fetterman's stubbornness on calling it a stain on Pennsylvania is an insult to those workers.
To be clear, you said you want people making a lot more, but that's not through a federal law of minimum wage. That's through market forces?
Market forces should drive it up anyway, and it's already done that.
Thank you.
You know, you should be able to get paid much more than $15 an hour.
Thank you. Lisa.
All right. Thank you, gentlemen. Another big issue for voters is abortion. Mr. Oz, we will begin with you. You say that you're pro-life, but you do support abortion exceptions in the cases of rape, incest, and to protect the life of the mother. Aside from those three exceptions, should abortion be banned in America? 60 seconds.
There should not be involvement from the federal government in how states decide their abortion decisions. As a physician, I've been in the room when there's some difficult conversations happening. I don't want the federal government involved with that at all. I want women, doctors, local political leaders, letting the democracy that's always allowed our nation to thrive, to put the best ideas forward so states can decide for themselves. Contrast that with my opponent, John Fetterman, who on this debate stage said that he would demand federally mandated rules for all states they'd have to follow that would allow abortion at 38 weeks on the delivery table, and he would force it to be subsidized by taxpayers across the country no matter what their personal beliefs are. That's radical. That's extreme. That is out of touch with what the average voter in Pennsylvania believes is appropriate. Now, ironically, John Fetterman's been running ads on this topic, dishonest ads. I need to correct the record. They were so bad, they got pulled off television stations. Even on this station, he was running dishonest ads that I had pulled off. I haven't had a single ad pulled down. My ads tell the truth. John Fetterman's are a fiction of his imagination.
All right. I'm going to let Mr. Fetterman respond specifically about the ads being pulled off the air, and then we will return to you, Mr. Oz. Mr. Fetterman.
Yeah. I want to look into the face of every woman in Pennsylvania. You know, if you believe that the choice of your reproductive freedom belongs with Dr. Oz, then you have a choice. But if you believe that the choice for abortion belongs between you and your doctor, that's what I fight for. Roe v. Wade, for me, should be the law. He celebrated when Roe v. Wade went down, and my campaign would fight for Roe v. Wade, and if given the opportunity, to codify it into law.
This is another piece. I think John Fetterman might be failing miserably here because when you're talking about Roe v. Wade and the abortion and so on, there's an extreme side to the free lifers. I get it. You know, the pro lifers. There's an extreme side to the position as well, but there's an extreme side to the pro choices. So the thing is, fighting for Roe v. Wade. At what extent are we talking about? And mothers or doctors giving them their rights to abort, killed a child. This is really what's happening here. It's like every time Democrats speak on this issue, they just look horribly bad because it's just that you keep saying you're supporting states to obliterate, to abort children, and mutilate them in some cases, which is deadly for your base, which is deadly for your argument when majority of Americans are like, we want life, we don't want to destroy it. So I think from this particular point, he's lost me being a Christian, and I'm like, mm, yeah, I think there's an extreme side to the pro-lifers as well. There are some cases where there's some exception to the rules and stuff, but the pro-choicers that are talking about abortion on demand, as they've done for years, or just as extreme, or even more to a degree. I just can't seem to line up with that either. You know, like when is a life a life? When is it okay to destroy life? When is it okay to abort a child? When is it ever okay? Anyway, let me stop here. Let's get back to the debate.
All right. Thank you, Mr. Fetterman. Going back to you, I want to circle back to something that you said, Mr. Oz. You mentioned the decision to regulate abortion should be something that is left up to the states. Now, Republican Senator Lindsey Graham has introduced a federal bill to ban abortion after 15 weeks. I know that you've been asked about this question before. If the vote were held today, you were elected senator, you're on the Senate floor, the clerk calls you, there's a roll call vote. Are you a yay or a nay? How would you vote on the Lindsey Graham bill? You have 30 seconds.
Lisa, I don't even need 30 seconds. I'll give you a bigger answer. I am not going to support federal rules that block the ability of states to do what they wish to do. The abortion decision should be left up to states, and specifically when John Fetterman...
You roll with Doug Mastriano.
John, when I'm done, John, you'll have your turn,
Mr.
John.
One moment, Mr. Fetterman. Continue, Mr.
I've been
Oz.
very clear on my desire as a physician not to interfere with how states decide. So when John purposely, knowingly misrepresents that to women, he scares them. He's purposely trying to alarm them, and the fear-mongering isn't working. Running tens of millions of dollars of ads claiming that I'm against all abortions when he knows that's not right, claiming that I'm going to be strict with Pennsylvania when he knows that's not honest. I can't be any clearer that I've been on the stage today. John Fetterman, if you just hear that one story today, I'd be really happy, but I know you're not going to, because you're going to go right back to telling the fables that you believe.
Mr. Oz, I want a 15-second clarification. You are saying that you would leave it up to the states, that the federal government does not have a role here. So are you saying you would not vote for the Lindsey Graham bill?
Any bill that violates what I said, which is the federal government interfering with the state rule on abortion, I would vote against. What I feel strongly about is that women in Pennsylvania understand what I'm saying and not believe that someone who's taken an extreme position like John Fetterman represents them, because most women do not believe that we should, at a federal level, codify 38 weeks of permission to have an abortion and have taxpayers pay for it.
So a yes or no on the Lindsey Graham bill?
I think I've answered it very, very clearly 3 times, Lisa.
Okay, all right. Thank you, Mr. Oz. Turning to you, Mr. Fetterman, you have frequently stated your belief that abortion should be safe and legal. Do you support any limits on when a woman can have an abortion? Please explain in 60 seconds.
You know, what I support on Roe v. Wade. That was the law of the land for 50 years. He celebrated when it fell down, and I would fight to reestablish on Roe v. Wade. That's what I run on. That's what I believe, and I've always believed that the choice belongs women and their doctors, and he believes that the choice should be with him or Republican legislators all across this nation.
All right.
Ah, come on, man. You just keep, you know, Democrats have to be careful because they are in serious trouble. Just on the issue of abortion alone, the more you keep supporting aborting children, aborting baby, under the name of Roe v. Wade, which was extreme to begin with, the more you support that is just you're not gonna get my votes. Okay, like over 70% of the Christians in your world, in the world today, are pro-choicers. You're gonna lose a big number of individuals. You have to change your view on this if you really want to win. And I know some may think that this is okay. This is a good argument. This is a good thing I'm standing for. No, you're messing up big time. And I'll stop right there and let them continue. But they need to stop doing this.
Sorry, I must correct that. Once again, he's misrepresented what I've said, but he also said something very dishonest. On this debate stage, he said very specifically in his primary debate, when he was still debating, that he would support 38 weeks of mandated rules by the federal government that would prevent any state from blocking it. So that's not Roe versus Wade.
That's not true. I support Roe v. Wade. That's the simple.
John,
Roe
you
v. Wade.
said specifically you would support
right,
a
thank you,
federal
Mr.
rule
Oz.
on 38
Mr. Oz,
weeks.
thank you.
But how
Thank
can,
you.
that's,
We-
I think
we-
it's important that John at least acknowledge that he's not honest here, because you said the
All right,
opposite
Mr.
on
Oz,
TV.
we must continue on. Mr. Fetterman, turning to you, we have a follow-up question. Would you support allocating federal funds to transport women who live in states where abortion is banned to states where they can get one, and why? 30 seconds.
I would. I would, because I believe abortion rights is a universal right for all women in America. I believe that abortion is health care, and I believe that that is a choice that belongs with each woman and their doctor.
All right.
Come on, bruh. How is abortion health care? First of all, there is nothing wrong with these women. They're not on a point of death. These are women who've made decision all on their own. The state was not involved when they've decided to lay with someone. And after the choice is made, you want taxpayers' dollars to go and sponsor and support them, to even pay for them to travel to whatever pro-abortion state, wherever they are, to get abortion for their children. How about we speak about what led to this in the first place? How about we speak about, to our daughters, about the value of morality and caring for their bodies, not to engage in premarital sex. But we don't want to talk about that. We don't want to talk about that too early, because it's a moral thing. It goes into the realm of religion. But the fact is, you're not gonna get my vote whenever you are messing up on the issue of abortion as bad as you are right now. And I'm not coming after John Fetterman. They have to understand, as a Christian, this is the Achilles heel for the Democratic Party. If they keep on singing this stone pro-abortion ideology, they're gonna lose so many of our votes. They're gonna lose it because it's just a wrong thing. I don't care what the state has to say. I don't care what Roe v. Wade had to say. It's just you gonna have to place value on the lives of these children. Period. Period. And everything else fall in line with that. And this is where John Fetterman loses me. And I'm saying as an independent thinker, I'm not Republican or a Democrat. I can't really say that right now. But when I'm looking at the arguments beyond the health condition, it's just the stuff that Democrats are supporting at this stage of the world is repulsive. It's repulsive. I'll stop. Let's get back.
All right, thank you, Mr. Fetterman. Turning to the next issue, Dennis.
Thank you, Lisa. Let's turn to what has become one of the key themes of this race: fitness to serve. For these individual questions, there will be no rebuttals allowed. Mr. Fetterman, we begin with you. You suffered, as you mentioned a moment ago, a stroke 4 days before the May primary. Last week, you released this note from your doctor saying you can work full duty in public office, but you have not released your detailed medical records surrounding your stroke. Mr. Fetterman, will you pledge tonight to release those records in the interest of transparency? You have 60 seconds.
No. To me, for transparency is about showing up. I'm here today to have a debate. I have, speeches in front of 3,000 people in Montgomery County, all across Pennsylvania, big crowds. I believe if my doctor believes that I'm fit to serve, and that's what I believe is appropriate. And now with 2 weeks before the election, I have run a campaign and I've been very transparent about being very open about the fact we're in use captioning. And I believe that, again, my doctors, the real doctors that I believe in, they all believe that I'm ready to be served.
Follow up.
I must also admit that a person having had a stroke is a tough time, and I appreciate John Fetterman's courage for coming out and speak. And stroke is a very difficult thing. I understand the doctors have something to say, and I think people are gonna have their doubts and questions anyway. You have to reassure us a little bit better than just my doctor said, because there's a lot of things these doctors said a lot of things. Okay. Again, there are political stuff involved here, so I can't just run with the words of the doctors. I appreciate it. I think 65% of my agreement goes with that, but it's just we still have a lot of doubts. But again, how fitting are you at this stage of your life? And what if you have another stroke? Only God's willing. Uh, what if you don't fully recover from this? How does this impact your decision and everything else? So there's a lot of other things we ought to be concerned with when it comes to John Fetterman, and I hope that he recovers fully. I've seen people who had strokes and they get back and they're doing perfectly fine. But if we're gonna vote for an individual in office who's gonna be making decisions for Pennsylvanians that will impact my children and family, you got to be at your best health. You got to be able to carry out the duties and doing the job without being restrained by your health condition. That is to me something that's concerning. I'm not gonna lie, it's concerning. I want to make sure that the man in office knows what he's doing. This is a very serious position. It's either you can do the job or you just can't do it. And but nevertheless, I wish him the very best. I'll be looking out and praying for his health to be recovered and stuff like that. But I'm still concerned. All right, let's get back to this thing.
I didn't hear you say you would release your full medical records. Why not? You have 30 seconds.
No, again, my Dr. L believes that I'm fit to be serving, and that's what I believe is where I'm standing.
Okay, Mr. Fetterman, thank you. Mr. Oz, you have built a lucrative career around medicine, but you've been criticized even by some fellow physicians for promoting, quote, unproven, ill-advised, and at times potentially dangerous treatments. What is your response to that? You have 60 seconds.
One of the great blessings of traveling around Pennsylvania is you run into people who have watched the show. They thank me very much for giving them life-saving advice on chronic issues like high blood pressure or dealing with their anxiety. The show did very well because it provided high-quality information that empowered people, which was exactly what I want to do when I'm a senator. Give people the power. Let them make decisions for their well-being. Now, John Fetterman's approach to health is a very dangerous one. He believes we should socialize medicine. He embraced this with Bernie Sanders, who he endorsed. The two candidates call themselves the two most progressive people in America. When you have socialized medicine, Dennis, you shut down the ability of people to get access to health care. Doctors stop practicing. There are no medications available. The lines get long. It's a disaster, and it puts people at risk. So I don't believe we should allow socialized medicine, the abolition of all private health care insurance in America, and radical positions like the ones taken by John Fetterman make him too extreme to serve. If we're going to bring balance to Washington, you got to bring people who understand the ramifications. Even Joe Biden called John Fetterman's idea, I'll quote him, preposterous.
Mr. Fetterman, I'm going to let you respond in just a minute, but I have a follow-up for you first, Mr. Oz. Did you or your company make a profit from promoting those products? You have 30 seconds.
I never sold weight loss products as described in those commercials. It's a television show, like this is a television show, so people can run commercials on the shows, and that's a perfectly appropriate and very transparent process. I ruffled a lot of feathers on my show because I told people the truth, and I'm proud of that. I'll do the exact same thing as a U.S. senator.
Go ahead.
But there's no way to defend what John Fetterman has done with socialized medicine. That is a radical departure from what we in America have accepted.
I must
a relationship
respond
between
to
your,
that.
John, you'll have your turn. John, let me
I must
finish.
respond to that.
There must be a relationship between a doctor and a patient, and that's what I would direct patients to do.
Thank you. Mr. Fetterman, he accused you of socialized medicine, supporting socialized medicine. What is your response?
Yeah, again, it's the Oz rule. He's on TV and he's lying. I never supported any of that thing. You know, he keeps talking about Bernie Sanders. You know, 3 years ago he was on his show and he hugged him and he said, "I love this guy." You know what? Why don't you pretend that you live in Vermont instead of Pennsylvania and run against Bernie Sanders? Because all you can do is talk about Bernie Sanders, because my truth is that healthcare is a basic fundamental right. And I believe in expanding that, and I believe about supporting, fighting for health care, the kind of health care that saved my life.
Dennis, that was dishonest. He explicitly supported socialized
Mr. Oz,
medicine.
we have a
Bernie
lot
Sanders.
of topics to get to. I think we've did this. Lisa, you go ahead.
We are going to move on to the next topic, and this has come up earlier, and that is the issue of fracking. Pennsylvania only trails Texas in terms of natural gas production. Both of you have taken shifting positions on the issue of fracking. Mr. Oz, we begin with you. You wrote a column in 2014 calling for no fracking pending health study results. But in a video posted on social media in March, you said, quote, "Natural gas guarantees high-paying skilled jobs right here in Pennsylvania, so back off Biden. Give us freedom to frack." Mr. Oz, please explain that changing position. 60 seconds.
I've been very consistent. Fracking has been demonstrated. It's a very old technology to be safe. It is a lifeline for this Commonwealth to be able to build wealth, similar to what they've been able to achieve in other states. For that reason, I strongly support fracking, drilling, the piping of that natural gas. In fact, I'd build a facility even in Philadelphia so we can export it to our allies and help them, the ones that are struggling now in Eastern and Western Europe because of the Ukrainian war. John Fetterman calls fracking a stain on Pennsylvania. He says that he would sign a moratorium to ban its continued use. He's against pipelines. He supported the vote against the Keystone pipeline that ended up shutting it down. He supports Biden's desire to ban fracking on public lands, which are our lands, all of our lands together. This is a extreme position on energy. If we unleashed our energy here in Pennsylvania, it would help everybody. Why John Fetterman is so rigidly stuck on fighting against energy companies is stunning to me, because it's the jobs I want. Tens of thousands of high-paying jobs to help Pennsylvanians.
Thank you, Mr. Oz.
Oz rule.
Mr. Fetterman,
you know,
15
I
seconds.
absolutely support fracking. In fact, I live across the street from a steel mill, and they were going to frack to create their own energy in order to make them more competitive. And I support that, living closer to anybody else in Pennsylvania for fracking to myself. I believe that we need independence with energy, and I believe I've walked that line my entire career. I believe Democrats...
Mr. Fetterman, I do have a specific question which you can continue on this topic, but you have made two conflicting statements regarding fracking. In a 2018 interview, you said, quote, "I don't support fracking at all. I never have." But earlier this month,
Whoa, 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 whoa. She called them out on that one. She called them out on that one. Again, which one is it? Which one is it? Is the big question. Do you support fracking or you don't? You know, if you follow the climate change discussion as well, you can see how this relates to that. But anyway, let him answer. Let's see what he has to say.
you told an interviewer, quote, "I support fracking. I support the energy independence that we should have here in the United States." So, Mr. Fetterman, please explain your changing position. 60 seconds.
I've always supported fracking, and I always believe that independence with our energy is critical, and we can't be held, ransom to somebody like Russia. I've always believed that energy independence is critical, and I've always believed that, and I do support fracking. I've never taken any money from their industry, but I support how critical it is that we produce our own energy and create energy independence.
Something is not adding up here. Something is just not adding up, Mr. John Fetterman. It's either you do support or you don't support him. How do you deal with the previous statement? And again, I can understand, having had a stroke and everything, I don't know, maybe you change your position over time, which happens. Sometimes we used to believe one thing and no longer do that. But I'm just trying to understand his points of argument here. Let's keep going.
I must correct the record.
Just a second, Mr. Oz. I do want to clarify something. You're saying tonight that you support fracking, that you've always supported fracking, but there is that 2018 interview that you said, quote, "I don't support fracking at all." So how do you square the two?
Good question.
I do support fracking, and I support fracking, and I stand, and I do support fracking.
Oh no. This is probably where he lost the fight. This is kind of where his career has ended. Because it just doesn't look good. It's just not adding up. This is a bad place for him to be right now. Very bad. Oh my Lord. He's in trouble, right? He's in trouble.
Okay, thank you, Mr. Fetterman.
I'm sorry, Lisa, but there's not just a statement you read. There are multiple. There's pictures of him signing a moratorium.
We have to move on.
But we have to get the fundamentals of the truth out here. John Fetterman over and over again took positions against energy.
We have a lot of topics. You will have a chance to have that in your
closing. One comment then. The energy industry is living in fear of John Fetterman. I want to know why.
Mr.
Oz, we want to now turn to public safety. Mr. Fetterman, Republicans have called you dangerously soft on crime. The Pennsylvania
It's really messed up. They didn't even allow Dr. Oz a chance to. Yeah. Thank you so much, my man. You have a great day. Thank you for your comments as well. It's really sad that they didn't allow Dr. Oz to capitalize on that point. They make sure that, hey, we got to move on. We got to move on now. It's like, okay. John Fetterman made a boo-boo here. Dr. Oz wanted to take advantage of this to build his base, but we can't have that. Let's move on. Oh my goodness, these debaters. All right, let's keep going.
Pennsylvania State Troopers Association has endorsed Democrat Josh Shapiro for governor, but in this race, it endorsed your Republican opponent, Mr. Oz. What is your response to those endorsements, and what is your response to accusations that you are, quote, dangerously soft on crime? You have 60 seconds.
No. I believe that I run on my record on crime. I ran to be mayor back in 2005 in order to fight gun violence, and that's exactly what I did. And working with the police and working with our community, I was able to stop gun violence for 5.5 years as mayor, ever accomplished before or since my time as mayor, because I'm the only person on this stage right now that was successful about pushing back against gun violence and being the community more safe. All he's done is just put a plan up on his website in the last 24 hours. He has no experience. He has never made any attempt to try to address crime during his entire career, except showing up for photo ops here in Philadelphia.
I will give you 15 seconds to respond to that, and then I have a question for you.
The Fraternal Order of Police from Braddock, the small town he represented, endorsed me. They supported me because what he's saying is not true. Violence skyrocketed in Braddock. I mean, the town wasn't in a good shape when John got there. It got worse when he was there. People kept leaving. So, of course, you're going to have all kinds of aberrations. But, John, the city was dangerous under your leadership, and that's why the FOP endorsed me.
Mr. Oz, this past summer, Congress passed the first gun control bill in decades. That would not have happened without the support of the man you are running to replace, Pat Toomey. How would you have voted on that bill, and would you continue Toomey's legacy as being one of the lead Republicans in Congress on pushing for gun reforms? You have 60 seconds.
I have been supported by Pat Toomey. I've enjoyed working with him. I think he's done a wonderful job. There are parts of that bill that I like a lot. For example, I like the fact that there are background checks that are being strengthened now, so we can make sure that people who should not have guns don't get guns. I also like the fact that there was a lot of money invested for mental health, which is an important part of the equation. I've been to Philadelphia. I've done prayer vigils with black clergy leaders who are desperately trying to save the people in their community. Half the murders in Philadelphia are committed by people under 18. We have got to get mental health services to these people, and it's not happening now. But part of the problem is that we have taken away the ability of police to do their job, and that's on John Fetterman. Because John Fetterman has taken such a harsh position against them. He's undermined them at every level, taken away some of their funding. He's pushed for Krasner, who he admires tremendously, and he's spoken highly of him just this week. He's taken his policies to a new extreme. He's argued that people should be let out of jail without any bail, no matter what they did to get in there. He's argued to release 1/3 of all prisoners. 1/3 of all prisoners out of touch.
Quickly, 15 seconds. Would you have voted for that Pat Toomey?
This is a powerful argument by Dr. Oz on this one, and very powerful argument. I'm anxious to find out what John Fetterman has to say.
Supported bill. If you
I
were
would have
in the
tried to
Senate.
improve that bill. There are things that I think most of us appreciate. I wasn't there at the time, so I can't speak to what was possible. But I do know there are parts of that bill that do make sense, and the ones I described should be followed. Let's see how it works out.
Okay, thank you. Lisa.
On to our next issue, and that is illegal immigration. It has been a problem in the United States for decades, but it is now spiking. U.S. Customs and Border Protection just released numbers from fiscal year 2022. They show more than 2.7 million total enforcement actions in the U.S. That is the most ever. Mr. Oz, beginning with you. Republican governors in the South have been sending migrants to Democratic-run cities and states without a plan or without any coordination. It is certainly gaining a lot of attention, but is it an effective way to deal with the influx of migrants? You have 60 seconds.
Good question. I'm anxious to find out what Dr. Ab says to answer. But I know, when Governor Abbott of Texas and also Ron DeSantis in Florida did this, it was a political stunt, of course, but the message was failed. It was a great way to expose the hypocrisy of the left that says, okay, we are a sanctuary state. And it's okay, I'm going to send you some immigrants and let's see how much of a sanctuary state you are. And then came to find out that's not really the case, was it? So I'm really anxious to find out how Mr. Dr. Oz, and again, like I've said, I'm from PA. Part of the reasons why I'm checking this out is because as a Pennsylvanian myself, I want to know what these candidates believe. And if there's any other debate you guys would like me to check out and we can bring them to the channel, I'll be more glad to do so. I thought there was one also with which was it? I think it's Illinois, or anyway, I think it's Marcus something with that one lady, a Caucasian lady. But I'm gonna bring that. I know Darth Vader sent that to me. I'm gonna bring that to the channel maybe tomorrow. So we're gonna look at another debate again. Going through those debates is very interesting because it helps you to see, these political leaders where they're headed in their policies and views and perspective, and how that's going to influence my vote and my family. So these are things I'm very concerned about, and that's the reason why we're doing this. So let's see what Mr. Dr. Oz has to say here.
Lisa, we have
an effective way to deal with the influx of migrants. You have 60 seconds.
Lisa, we have a catastrophe at the border, and we should not have sanctuary cities as John Fetterman has tried to introduce. But I've been into the parts of Philadelphia and Allentown and Reading where we have large Latino populations. I understand the challenges of the border. My father was an immigrant. My mother were immigrants. I understand what legal immigration offers us, but the completely porous, open nature of our border, which John Fetterman supports, has created a humanitarian crisis with cartels profiting with human trafficking operations. They take the money, they buy narcotics from China and bring that into our country, and it's making every state a border state. Pennsylvania is already a border state because we're top 3 in the country in fentanyl overdoses. Lisa, I can't go anywhere and giving a big event where I don't meet multiple people who say their personal lives have been destroyed because of fentanyl overdoses. Yet John Fetterman not only wants an open border, not only supports sanctuary cities, but he wants to legalize all hard drugs in America, including narcotics. That is...
Wait. Is this serious? Oh, come on. John Fetterman. I hope this is a lie. I can't wait to see what John Fetterman says to these accusations. I hope this is not true. legalize all drugs. Listen, man, people who talk about make drugs legal, they really need to go. They say war on drugs is a bad thing. You really need to go to New Jersey. You need to go to Philly. You need to go to these different Kensington, New Jersey. I think it's Kensington, Philadelphia. You need to go to these places and take a look, and take a look, and take a closer look at the impact on drugs on the minds of the people. Okay, families are destroyed. Looters steal, theft, crimes, everything. You give drug a free reign, your world will be destroyed. So if John Fetterman supports all of that simply based on what Dr. Oz is saying, his entire fan base, his entire foundation is ripping apart. And I'm hoping that maybe Dr. Oz is lying. Let's just find out.
I mean, out of touch with everybody. That radical position was tried in Oregon, which he endorsed. 50% homicide increase rate.
Oh, one moment. I will give a 15-second rebuttal.
Yeah, that is, again, the Oz rule. That is just not true. Here, his family.
He keep on saying this. Oz rules. Is this not true? I mean, he's saying Dr. Oz is making up all this stuff. Like, you sure he's making them up? Because if these things are true, man, you are not in a good condition right now. At least not in my eyes. And I'm looking at it like from face value. I'm like, yeah, you don't look so good right now. you, you're in a very bad position politically speaking here because you're supporting drugs, you're supporting abortion. And so these are all democratic stuff. And it's like, I think a lot of people in the Democratic Party, even in the Republican Party, they refuse to challenge things that might be wrong in the party. Like abortion, in a way that the Democrats have supported it, it is wrong. Like, why aren't Democrats speaking against that and make a bold stand for the lives of the unborn? Drugs, letting criminal free out of prison and everything, and to create havoc on our cities. That's just wrong. Why aren't you speaking against it, right? Allowing immigrants to flood our states with drugs and cartel, fentanyls, and so on. These things are wrong. Why are you supporting that? Why are you allowing your political position to determine your conscience? Like, what's up with that? Don't you have your own way of thinking about things from cause to effect? You know, free drugs, legalize drugs. Do you really want to do that? Like, you know what that does to a city? You know what that does to families? Oh my goodness. Like, you won't have a city and a family if this is the case. It's best you push against it. You might not be able to stop it completely, but a level of restraint is better than just letting it loose, let it rain. Like, what kind of politician you want to be doing that? I mean, I can tell you, none of my families who've done drugs have ever been the same. Their lives are messed up. Even after they recover, they got a messed up life. And it's not something you want to play with. And if you are a candidate that's supporting that, I'm just like, yo, bro, I can't vote for you, right? You're not gonna get my vote, that's for sure.
Family's company was levied the largest fine for his family. The Oz
Increase rate.
Oh, one moment. I will give a 15-second rebuttal.
Yeah, that is, again, the Oz rule. That is just not true. Here, his family's company was levied the largest fine for immigration hiring of immigrant illegals. And I think you should sit this one out about in terms of what a secure border.
All right. We do have a follow-up specifically for you, Mr. Fetterman. Vice President Kamala Harris says the southern border is secure, yet we are seeing an unprecedented number of migrants crossing. Is the border secure? And if not, what would you do to fix what both parties are calling a crisis? You have 60 seconds, Mr. Fetterman.
I believe that a secure border can be compatible with compassion. I believe we need a comprehensive and bipartisan solution for immigration. That's what I believe. I don't ever recall in the Statue of Liberty did they say, take our tired huddle masses and put them on a bus and use cheap political stunts about them. I believe we have to develop a comprehensive and bipartisan solution to address our issue here.
Is he serious? John, what are you doing, John? Oh my lord. I believe. Okay, secure border is compatible with compassion. What does that mean? So you're saying we're gonna secure the borders and yet we're gonna leave the borders open? Oh, these people, like, what does that say to all these other countries who want to come to the United States that are waiting for their papers? I have my father whose wife is in Haiti right now, and I have a younger brother. We've been waiting for 3 years. We've paid over 3,000 something, close to $5,000. We are waiting for an answer from the embassy. We haven't heard anything yet. We are waiting and praying. We can't just get them to sneak their way through here. They have to wait like everybody else. But how comes others get to come in under the notion there is a law? There are proper procedures that one must go through in order to enter the country and be safe and taken care of without overtaxing the people of the state. Like, this stuff is just common sense. You got to secure your borders. You got to do it. You do it for your own house. You don't let just whoever come in your home. You do it to protect your own children. Why don't you do it to protect the citizens of the country? To me, it's like Democrats who are supporting open borders have lost their minds. It's just like if you argue this in the positive in any way as a Democrat, I'm letting you know, an independent thinker like myself, you losing my vote. And many others are looking at you like, yo, brother, like, these guys are coming in with drugs. There are gangsters coming in. They're not sending the best. They're sending some of their worst. And not only that, we do have some that are decent. Don't get me wrong. We have families that are coming that are decent. We're not talking about the decent people. And the decent people should also go through the system. But when these people are coming in with their drugs and everything else that's happening, like, it's just that they have to go through the process that every other person had to go through to get to this country. We can just flood them right in here and say, well, you can't use them as a political stunt to send them to different state to make a statement. Well, yeah, of course you can. You're not abusing them. You sending them to your state. You say you have sanctuary states. Send them to New York. Send them to Martha's Vineyard. Hey, you guys love immigrants. So here are some of them. Here, have them. But no, you want them to come in through the states where they're saying we don't want them, but you want them to sponsor and support and pay for their lives. But we send them to your states where you say, okay, we believe in securing borders. So when Republicans send them to you, you quickly get rid of them. You're not about that life. To me, I'm like, so there is really very little reasons for Republicans to keep on arguing, these immigration so-called policies where the borders are left wide open for these people to come in and take advantage of what other Americans should have. That's not fair. That's not fair to the country. It's not fair to many Americans like ourselves who've been working really hard. It's not fair as a whole. And I know there are some humanitarian reasons where refugees need to be considered. There are some things that we need to keep in mind, and make some decisions along the way. But what we have going on is the borders are wide open. The people are just flooding through the gates without any restraints. That to me is problematic, and it's just not going to get my vote. And I don't want to keep going about this, but anyway, I just thought, like, the fact he argued this point the way he did, and I thought, like, bro, you making yourself look really, really bad right now.
Comprehensive and bipartisan solution to address our issue here for immigration here in our nation.
All right, thank you, gentlemen. On to the
But
next
John's
issue.
not addressing the
We
elephant in the
have
room,
to move
fentanyl.
on. We have to move on to the next issue. We will be circling back on that.
Turning now to foreign policy, Mr. Fetterman.
I love how they don't always give they don't give Dr. Oz an opportunity to speak about the same questions. He doesn't address them. It's like they ask Mr. Fetterman and he answers that, and we gotta move on. We gotta move on. But it's like, wait a minute, there's an elephant in the room. Can we address that? He's like, no, we can't move on. And I think there's an imbalance even in the way the questions are being put forth. And I'm not sure if this is a Republican run type of debate, I'm guessing, or a Democrat run type of debate. But you can see even in the way that they're treating Mr. Dr. Oz, you can also see there's like a level of biasness is there in it as well. I can pick up on that.
What do you believe is the greatest foreign threat to the United States of America? You have 60 seconds.
I believe, you know, is right now is China. I believe China is not our friend, and I believe that we can't be able to push back, and we need to stand against China. And I believe that Dr. Oz has chosen to manufacture all of his merchandise on his name on it in China. Which one of us on this stage is going to stand up against and stand firm against China? You know, and I believe that's our single biggest issue right now, to make sure that we address China and make sure that we know that it's not our friend.
Mr. Oz, what do you believe is the greatest foreign threat to the United States of America? You have 60 seconds.
The fact that our country is not projecting strength. Take, for example, what we're doing with Iran. In order to try to get them to give us a little oil so we can deal with the catastrophe that Russia has caused, we have gone to them and tried to sign a deal that would allow them once again to have the nuclear power to blow up Israel, which they promised they would do. John Fetterman supports that deal. It doesn't make any sense for America to treat our enemies better than our allies. We have to message with our strong voice and the energy we have in our country that we have control over our future. And the best way for America to establish its dominance is to unleash the energy here in Pennsylvania and across the country. By not doing that, not only do we cause all kinds of problems with local jobs and inflation, but we're destroying our ability to remain energy dominant, and we're not able to become allies like we should be for countries like European nations, which are going to struggle with their coldest winter ever. It's the best way to punch Putin back and to teach China a lesson is American energy to reign supreme. And John Fetterman doesn't like American energy, and they are scared of him because they know they can't trust him. He's proven it.
Mr. Oz, thank you.
Oh man, Dr. Oz is killing it right now, and I'm telling you, I'm being convinced. Like I said, I came into this debate. I'm listening to this. I'm not for Oz nor Fetterman. I actually didn't even research their history. To me, it doesn't matter because I'm somewhat of an independent thinker, and I'm like, I want to hear both sides of the art, and I want to see who's making sense, not just talking great. I know John Fetterman had his stroke, and I have a lot of compassion for that. And I know when people go through stuff, it's not something to laugh at. It's not a joke because this could happen to me any moment now. So I'm humbling myself when it comes to this. Dr. Oz has his points, and John Fetterman has his point. When you compare and contrast, it's just that the level of weakness is so bad when it comes to John Fetterman. It's not just the way he talks, the arguments are really, really weak. And when you listen and you're like, this is not a good at all. And Dr. Oz again just obliterated this whole thing. It's like if I had to vote for anybody, you know who is definitely getting my vote, because listen carefully to what he said concerning the situation with you talk about China. China is your worst enemy. Yeah, don't get me wrong. The Chinese got some stuff they doing that are not good, to the United States. I do certainly do consider that they are an enemy of this of the United States. But nevertheless, your worst enemy is not China, buddy. Your worst enemies of those within this country who are creating problems and created that they are pushing the ideologies, these communist perception. They are destroying us from within. Your worst enemies are those who are saying climate change, climate change, climate change, and they want to defund the police. They want to do all these crazy stuff to destroy the country from within. These are your worst enemies. Your worst enemies are those who are religious nuts, and I'm using this loosely because they appear to be Christian, but really they are trying to uproot and destroy our constitution. These are your worst enemies. And I'm like, bruh, China is not the worst. China is an enemy, but we have other things happening within this country, boy. If I were to try to tell you, I'll say you need to change your focus slightly, And I think, and I like what Dr. Oz says. You strengthen yourself as a country. These other nations will respect you. It's true. If you China do what they do because they see the weakness in this country. And with the present administration, you look at like you like, yo, man, the man is not good health wise. His mentally is not there, and China look at that and say, boy, we're gonna do what we do. They have no respect. They need to see strength, success, and courage coming from Americans, and especially among the leaders. If they don't see that, they're just gonna laugh at you and laugh in our face. And I think that's exactly what's going on here.
Energy, and they are scared of him because they know they can't trust him. He's proven it.
Mr. Oz, thank you. Lisa.
All right, on to our next issue. In our recent Next Star poll, a hypothetical rematch between Joe Biden and Donald Trump in 2024 would be a statistical tie in Pennsylvania. 40
I want to read your comment here. I think what you said, it makes a lot of sense. It's funny, the same people that say defund the police are the same people who want to ban guns. What are they gonna do when criminals attack them? It's just that's just common sense, right? You talking common sense here, Vegas. You talking common sense, and I don't know why people just don't see that. To me, it's like, what? China? What is he talking about? Yeah, that's my question too, man. Yeah, we need to strengthen our borders and our militaries. We need to strengthen, but again, we have to have somebody in position who can do that, because we know for certain right now, Mr. Biden is just not looking good from my perspective. Let's keep going.
6% of people said they would vote for former President Trump, 45% for President Biden. Mr. Oz, would you support a Trump 2024 run, and why? 60 seconds.
I'll support whoever the Republican Party puts up. And I have reached out across the aisle on my campaign because I want to bring balance to Washington. And I've tried to work with Democrats and Republicans and people in the middle, and people unsure, and people who forgot, and people who got angry with where their party was headed. I want to bring us together to make this country do what it's always been able to do: unify, not divide, and address the problems as a surgeon, because in the OR, that's what I do. I just fix the big problem in front of me. John Fetterman, however, cannot go to Washington and work with the other side because he doesn't even get along with his own side. He criticized Joe Biden for not spending enough money and not sidling up close enough to Bernie Sanders. He says he won't work with Joe Manchin. He said, if you like Joe Manchin, don't vote for me. So if you're picking fights with your own party, you're not going to be able to reach across the aisle to the other side. His extreme positions have made him untenable for Republican lawmakers. We need to send someone to Washington who understands the importance of balance, sensible decision-making, and a common sense approach to the challenges that we all face. That's not John Fetterman.
Mr. Oz, Donald Trump has supported you. He has endorsed you. Why won't you fully commit to supporting him in 2024?
Oh, I do. I would support Donald Trump if he decided to run for president.
All right.
But this is bigger than one candidate. This is a much bigger story about how we are going to build a bigger tent to let more Americans feel safe.
Are you concerned about the ongoing legal investigations involving the former president? 30 seconds, sir.
I haven't followed them very carefully. I've been campaigning pretty aggressively. They'll work themselves out. I have tremendous confidence in the
It's like that ongoing investigation, January 6th. It's like that to me is like, why y'all still talking about this? It's like, to me, it's like, yo, the man is no longer in the position of leadership. He's no longer president. You invaded his privacy. You sent FBI to his home. You trying to demoralize the man. You created so many different cases. You trying to butcher and destroy his character in so many different ways, and yet he's coming out spotless. Now you got this little hook called January 6th. When you do your research, you find out there were Antifa members who were really ramping things up, and again, you cannot really prove that the president was behind that, because there's really no facts. While he calls for it to stop, he condemns the act. Those videos are not shared. So there's a lot of other factors that need to be considered here, but it's like they're making it appear that this was the worst thing that ever happened to America. Like, when you look at these riots for Black Lives Matter and all these Antifas for well over a year on the death of George Floyd have done more damage to the cities more than anything. And here I am, I'm looking at this on my screen and I'm like, so you're saying that January 6th is the worst thing that happened? I'm like, what about these Black Lives Matter rioters? What about the looting? What about the burning down of the businesses? What about what they did to Minnesotans? What about defunding the police? What about many cops that were shot? What about lives that were lost doing these rioters? No, it's because you went to a Capitol, I guess, building. That makes it really, really bad when cities are being burned down. That's not that bad of a deal after all. So it's like these questions, when you read them, you can see the political leaning. It's like, bro, like, is that your main concern concerning Mr. Trump right now? is January 6th. And it's like, we are like, hey, I'm trying to, can we work on gas prices here? Can we work about real deals here? Can we talk about our freedom? Can we talk about censorship online? Because, some of our videos are being taken down. Can we talk about some of these things that people are concerned with? Can we save the lives of the unborn? There are real issues we are concerned with, but it's like this January 6th. It's like that's that talking point. And the more they keep on dying on this hill, it is just, I can see, like, for me, you're not gonna get my vote on January 6th event. And that was a bad thing. What happened was sad. I'm not happy that he did. But if you think I'm gonna hate Mr. Trump for the rest of my life because of what happened, I'm like, no, that's not good enough for me. You're gonna have to tell me something bigger than that, because there were so many other moving factors to this. Ugh, I don't know why they keep on trying to use this. It's just not working.
American legal system, and I believe law and order will reign supreme. But speaking about that topic, there's one person on this stage who's broken the law, we believe. John Fetterman took a shotgun, chased an unarmed African-American man, and put the gun, apparently, according to that man, to his chest. John, you weren't pulled over by the police. They let you go. You were the mayor at the time. Why haven't you apologized to that unarmed, innocent black man who you put a shotgun to his chest?
All right, we will allow a 30-second response to that, Mr. Fetterman, specifically what he was saying, referring to the incident in Braddock.
I made the opportunity to defend our community as the chief law enforcement officer there. Everybody in Braddock, an overwhelmingly majority community of black community, all understood what happened. They understood what happened, and everybody agreed that, and nobody believes that it was anything about me making a split-second decision to defend our community as well.
Why not apologize?
Point deducted again, because it's just that one. I don't want to get caught up in the skin color race battle. It's just that things happen. I know there are many different factors to say everybody agreed this happened because I had to make a split second decision, yada, yada, yada. And there were other factors that we just don't know about. It's just the defense that he is giving me right now is not convincing at all. Like, I know the part of the stroke, it could be the reasons why he's having such a hard time explaining himself. But you gotta do a much better job explaining some of these things, because these are like potholes, man. Potholes in your political stands here, and people like myself, who are in the middle, who are trying to make a decision either for one or the other party. When we see stuff like that, we like, oops,
Mr. Oz, please.
horrible.
We are still with Mr. Fetterman. Turning to you right now, you support a Biden run. Do you support a Biden run in 2024? Why in 60 seconds?
That's obviously, it's up to his choice whether he, and if he does choose to run, I would absolutely support him. But ultimately, that's ultimately only his choice.
All right. Thank you, Mr. Fetterman. A follow.
Mr. John Fetterman, do you really believe with all your heart Biden is able to run this country for another 4 years with the state of his mind right now? His mental status? Do, are we going to ignore all the signs in our face that there is something mentally wrong with Mr. Biden? And then we're gonna put him back in position. You will support that? Why would you do that? Do you care about Americans? Do we care about Americans enough to know when it's good and when it's not? Lord have mercy. I don't know. I don't know what these guys were thinking. Maybe they know.
Follow-up question on this. Our Next Star poll shows 51% of Pennsylvania voters disapprove of the president's job performance. You have publicly supported many of his policy positions. Are there any that you disagree with? 30 seconds.
No, I just believe he needs to do more about supporting and fighting about inflation. And I do believe he can do more about that. But at the end of the day, I think Joe Biden is a good family man, and I believe he stands for the union way of life. And I believe that unemployment is already down to the lowest level in the last 50 years.
All right. Thank you, gentlemen. Dennis.
Let's turn now, gentlemen, to the issue of Social Security. It is only fully funded through 2034. Many Americans are worried that they will never receive their full benefit or have to accept cuts to their benefits. Mr. Fetterman, how are you going to make sure it is there for them? You have 60 seconds.
We need to make sure that Dr. Oz and the Republicans believe in cutting Medicare and Social Security. And I believe that they have to support and expand Social Security. And if somebody send me to Washington, D.C., I would support and stand and to support security, Social Security.
Okay, thank you. Mr. Oz, same question to you. How are you going to make sure that Social Security is available for future Americans? You have 60 seconds.
We made a deal with the wonderful seniors of our nation. They worked their hearts out. They paid into a program. No one's going to touch it on my watch except to make sure that it's stronger than it is right now. Social Security, Medicare, which I know a lot about as a doctor, are the fundamental element of security for our seniors, and they deserve to feel like they're valued by our nation. John Fetterman, again, has been running ads and saying that I'm against those with no proof. I have never said anything different than what I'm saying to you on this stage. But in an effort to fearmonger with people who are older and can be taken advantage of, he'll run these ads. John, it's reprehensible, but it's also reflective of your approach to doing these things. You haven't shown up on the campaign trail. You haven't answered questions from voters, not once on the campaign trail. You haven't answered questions from media once on the campaign trail, even just to show off that you could do it. And this is the only debate I could get you to come to talk to me on. And I had to beg on my knees to get you to come. And if it wasn't for Dennis probably getting involved, I don't think it would have happened. Seniors need to know more about your radical left positions, and I need to be able to tell them about my positions. That's what democracy is built on. We exchange ideas, the voters decide. You have hidden from them.
Mr. Oz, I'm going to let you have 15 seconds in a moment, Mr. Fetterman, but can you give us a specific example of what you would do to protect Social Security?
Well, for one, we have to make sure that it adequately increases with the higher inflation rates that we have. So we've got to make that 4% of wasted money that right now is in the budget redirected appropriately. And one of the first places that I would use it is Social Security and Medicare. And here's the reason. One of the worst things we can do to a people is give them bad quality care. And so if you have if you have people who are not going to see a doctor, for example, because they can't afford it, they'll get sicker. Bad medicine means more cost. No one benefits.
Thank you. Mr. Fetterman, he said a few things a moment ago. I want to give you 15 seconds to respond to those.
Now, again, I can't just say one thing other than that Dr. Oz would not support, and he would support cutting Medicare. And that's
John, why do you say that? I've never said that.
It's absolutely a fact. It's a fact. You would have voted against the Inflation Reduction Act, which has dropped our prescription drugs, and he doesn't believe.
Okay, gentlemen, we need to move on. Lisa.
All right, we are moving on to the topic of education. The cost of college tuition is now out of reach for many, many families. Our question is for both of you. We start with Mr. Oz. What is your plan to bring down the cost of higher education long term? You have 1 minute, Mr. Oz.
I've worked in academic medical centers my whole life, so I'm in higher education. And I can tell you the reason that the prices have gone up sixfold in the last 40 years is not because the education quality is better. We've added extra layers of middle level individuals who don't actually improve the quality education. In my opinion, there's a lot of expenses now incurred by these institutions, and it's not right for the American people to be stuck with the bill. I would push them to offer more electronic classes. Half the kids don't live on campus anyway. John Fetterman's approach, however, is not to deal with the unnecessarily high costs, but just to pay it. So if you want to pay students who didn't pay their loans back, basically what John Fetterman and Joe Biden are arguing for is for plumbers who didn't go to college and couldn't, for a bunch of reasons, afford it, to pay the bills of lawyers who went to graduate school and haven't paid their debt back. I don't think that's right for the American people. We want a fair system. Drop the cost down by pushing for more value for the money we're spending, and then ensure there's a high-quality education that lets people make a living when they graduate.
All right.
Yep. I totally agree with that. Education is so expensive. I mean, I'm in debt till Jesus come. Oh Lord, but I'll tell you what, but I'm not okay. I'm not okay for my money to go and pay for other people's career choice that had nothing to do with me in the beginning. Like, to me, it's like I am not for that. So, Dr. Oz, yeah, I agree with your point again. It's just I can't understand the nature of these policies that are coming from the Democratic Party at all. But who am I to judge?
I will allow a 15-second rebuttal specifically on the issue of student loan debt, which Mr. Oz was referring to. Mr. Fetterman.
Again, Dr. Oz, loves free money when it's a $500,000 tax break on one of his, homes down in a ranch in Florida, and whether it was a $50 tax break, about his farm in Montgomery County. So it's about supporting and helping, young earners, young students to give them a break. I believe that supporting.
All right, let me just ask specifically, with the plan to ease student loan debt, the debt forgiveness of $10,000, $20,000 for Pell Grant recipients, do you support that position?
I do absolutely support that. I believe, like I said, it's about helping young learners, be able to get a better start, getting off in the start of their life. And I do believe that, and I believe a majority of Americans support that as well too, helping young learners.
All right, Mr. Fetterman, I want to ask you the same question that I asked Mr. Oz. And what is your plan to bring down the cost of higher education long term? You have 1 minute.
Yeah, I don't think he didn't answer. He didn't answer the question whatsoever.
I did answer the question.
Mr. Oz, please give him a moment.
You didn't. I fundamentally believe that every quality public university education should be very affordable in every state, and I think that needs to be a significant investment. To make sure that anyone be able to afford to go to get a 4-degree university degree, at Penn State or at Pitt or any state schools, to make it much more affordable. And that means acquiring a significant investment to make sure and create it affordable that every family can afford.
How exactly, Mr. Fetterman, do you propose doing that to make it more affordable for families?
No, I just believe, making it that much more, it costs too much. And I believe providing the resources to
I had a English teacher that once told me. I used to say all the time, I believe, I believe, I believe, and I would make my statement, I believe this and I believe that, and the teacher was like, you don't have to keep telling me you believe. You just need to use a different word and also give me reasons why you believe. I want the reasons more than the statement. Um, I know, like, having had a stroke, uh, Mr. John Fetterman, it's kind of difficult for him to put his words together, and I'm not judging, but just believing itself is not enough. I say I believe this, I believe that. What are the plans you have? What are some things you've worked on before? What are some policies you've written? What are some laws? Who have you worked with? You have to come up with things like that. And I think he wasn't ready for this question at all. Just wasn't ready. And, saying I believe is just not enough. Sorry to say, it's just not. Because how do you implement that? What are some procedures you're going to put in place to carry it out? These are the things that we have to worry about. What are your plans? An old lady used to tell me, she said it this way, James, plan your work and work your plan. And if you don't have a plan, how can you say you're going to work? How can you work if there is no plan? So I don't think he has anything ready to carry out the job at this stage. And very nice guy, could tell. Very nice guy. When you look at his face, you can tell this is a really, really nice man. And he's trying to do what is right, and he's gone through a lot, and my heart goes out to him. But is he ready for the job at this stage of his life? I don't think so. I just don't. I'm listening to this debate, and I'm just becoming more concerned and more concerned about his condition. I'm gonna be praying for him, honestly. I'm gonna be praying for him, but I'm gonna be praying that he doesn't need to put himself through any more of this stuff that's going on in politics. This is not. He won't do good like this. Not in this condition of his life.
reduce the tuition to allow families to be able to afford it.
All right, we have a follow-up question. This one now is for both of you. This is from News Nation viewer Ann Andrews. a registered nurse from Conneautville near Erie. Ann is a vocational educational instructor for a university and a practicing registered nurse.
If you were elected, could you please tell me what you would be doing for vocational education in the state of Pennsylvania as well as our nation?
So, Mr. Oz, if elected, what would you do for vocational education? You have 30 seconds.
I've visited vocational schools. I have an answer. But, John, because obviously I wasn't clear enough for you to understand this, there's no question that cutting out the middle levels of higher education and providing digital programs would reduce the cost of education. It's a concrete set of ideas that I'd like to move on. With regard to vocational education, this is really important for us to allow our trade unions to get more closely linked with the vocational schools. I was at a vocational school in Westmoreland, and they have about 1,000 kids. They could take 2,000 kids. Funding those programs is the smartest way to invest our tax dollars. We'll turn out twice as many children who have a job as soon as they graduate. It supports our trade unions who want those kids in their positions anyway. It makes the whole program work.
Thank you, Mr. Oz. Mr. Fetterman, if elected, what would you do for vocational education? You have 30 seconds.
Again, I think it's just the same the way the university for degrees as well too. Supporting that and partnering with the unions and making sure that vocation training are is affordable, and providing the resources to make sure everyone has the opportunity. Going to college isn't the right choice for every person, but going to those kind of vocational schools, able to create a career to Wayne reach a lot of high salary, and again supporting reduce those costs are critical too.
Hey, you go, John. I have to agree with John on this one. I think Dr. Oz did a good job in showing that one too. But John, certainly on this point here, he was a lot more clear. He made a lot more sense, supporting vocation schools and trades and so on. I am one of those guys who strongly believe in that. It's not just college degree. There are other trades and other ways you can make money as well. So that was really nice. I give him credit for that one. Let's keep going.
All right. Thank you, gentlemen. Dennis.
Moving now, multiple members of Congress, specifically Democrats, have called for the Supreme Court to be expanded. Candidates, we want to know where you stand on this. Mr. Fetterman, should the Supreme Court be expanded? And if so, by how many justices? You have 60 seconds.
I don't believe, I don't stand, and I don't believe in that. I fundamentally believe that even though I don't agree with the ideological breakup of the Supreme Court, I believe it's not about changing the rules. It's about acknowledging where we're at, much the way the Republicans want to try to change the Constitution about how our Supreme Court in Pennsylvania is going to be done, and I don't support that. So I think it's critical that we be consistent, and I do not believe in supporting the Supreme Court.
Mr. Oz, same question to you. Should the Supreme Court be expanded? If so, by how many justices? You have 60 seconds.
I would never touch the makeup of the Supreme Court, and I would advocate to leave it the exact same size it is. But John Fetterman's radical positions have spilled over into what he would do in Washington. One of the first things he has said, and he came back to the campaign trail, is that he wanted to bust the filibuster, which means removing the brakes on the Senate overreacting. That's risk.
True. That is true.
But if you do that, then you would free up the Democrats in the Senate without getting the normal amount of votes to actually expand the Supreme Court, add more states, do things that are detrimental to the well-being of the country. So I think, on your first day back, arguing that we should get rid of the filibuster is a dangerously radical move that would hurt Washington. It's not in our nation's best interest.
Thank you both very much.
All right. At this time, we are ready for our closing statements. You each have 90 seconds to convince Pennsylvanians to vote for you on Election Day. Mr. Fetterman.
This is one of the most important part of the entire debate. I think this is where I'm gonna see which one of those two candidates are saying something. To be honest with you, I'll share my final thought. But Dr. Oz did amazingly well. John Fetterman, despite of his condition, tried as much as he could, and I give him a lot of credit for that. I see courage, I see strength, I see effort, and I see determination. That is beautiful to me, despite of his health condition, and it's awesome to see. But I guess this is the statement now that I'm gonna say is going to put the icing on the cake. So let's take a listen.
You are first, 90 seconds.
Once again, I would just like to say that my campaign is all about fighting for anyone in Pennsylvania that ever got knocked down, that had to get back up again. I'm also fighting for any forgotten community all across Pennsylvania that ever got knocked down, that had to be made to get back up. I've made my entire career dedicating to those kinds of pursuits. I started as a GED instructor back in Braddock over 20 years ago because I believe it's about serving Pennsylvania, not about using Pennsylvania for their own end interests as well. To me, careers are revealed by your real underlying values. And my values have always been about fighting for forgotten communities all across Pennsylvania.
All right, thank you, Mr. Fetterman. Mr. Oz, your final thoughts, 90 seconds.
I've loved traveling to the four corners of the beautiful Commonwealth, and I've heard your problems. I'm a surgeon, doctor. I listen to what you say, and I'm trying to help address them today. I've talked to seniors worried their Social Security checks wouldn't go far enough with the raging inflation. I've talked to couples when I make their first down payment on a new house and they can't afford it anymore because of interest rates. I've talked to families.
You want to cut Social Security.
Mr. Fetterman, it's his turn for his closing.
I've talked to families worried about fentanyl showing up in their mailbox and literally taking the lives of their children who they find blue in bed. I've talked to families who won't let their kids go outside because of the crime wave that's been facilitated by left radical policies like the ones John Fetterman has been advocating for. But here's the deal, right? None of this has to happen. This is all very addressable. I'm a surgeon. I'm not a politician. We take big problems, we focus on them, and we fix them. We do it by uniting, by coming together, not dividing. And by doing that, we can get ahead. But I've got one question to challenge you with, just one question. If you take what I'm saying to heart, ask yourself this and others in your family. Are you unhappy with where America's headed? I am. And if you are as well, then I'm the candidate for change. I'm a living embodiment of the American dream. I believe we're the land of opportunity, the land of plenty. I believe we can balance a budget without recklessly spending. I believe we can have an unleashed energy policy that helps us all. I believe that we can have safe city streets and a secure border so legal immigrants can come across, but you shut the fentanyl out. I believe we can give parents choice in where their kids go to school. We can have affordable health care. But most of all, I believe in you. And if you can do this together, and we can, I would ask for your vote on Election Day. God bless you.
We do have one final question, an important issue in Pennsylvania.
Wow. It's just that Dr. Az has such a good advantage because his health is better. And I'm trying to this is a tough one because, you don't want to go after John Fetterman's health, his condition and so on. And I have compassion, man. I have compassion. I'm a Christian. I know I've seen what, the health thing really bothers me. It breaks my heart. And I really want to understand where John Fetterman's position is. And I want to sympathize and meet him where he is. But that's like his greatest downfall in this argument is his health. Unfortunately, it's not so much his policies. His policies, there's a lot of potholes in there. There's some things I don't agree with. But my greatest concern is the condition of his condition right now. Dr. Oz he said everything I want to hear from a politician. Everything that it will take for me to be convinced to say this is the guy I want to vote for. He just said it all perfectly the way it needs to be said, man. And I wish I could say the same for Mr. John Fetterman at this time. He's not doing good, And honestly, I'm going to be praying for him. I'm going to put his name on my prayer list and pray for him and his family. But based on this debate, did John Fetterman convince me to vote for him? The answer is no. Did Dr. Oz convince me to vote for him? Resoundingly, yes. And that's just true. It's not about Republican or Democrat for me. It's just the arguments were strong. The policies were different. He came with serious plans. He had a strong history. Dr. Oz just had all these ducks in a row, man. He just is destroying him, unfortunately. John Fetterman I'm not talking about his speech so much, because to me, I understand, having had a stroke, I get it. But there was barely any plans. there was barely any little reasons given for his failures, especially the one as a cop putting a gun to somebody's chest. The reasons were not even properly explained. Uh, so when Dr. Oz threw some shades at him, threw some black balls at him, he didn't do a very good job rebuttaling some of these black balls. And I looked at all of that and I'm like, sorry, bud. You're not going to get my vote, Mr. John Fetterman. And I think a lot of other people feel the same way. So let me know below, guys, what do you guys think? I'm going to let them finish, and we're going to bring this thing to an end.
The eyes of the state are on this debate tonight, but on Sunday they will be on Lincoln Financial Field in Philadelphia as the state's two NFL teams go head-to-head. Mr. Fetterman, Steelers or Eagles, and why?
Oh, clearly, always for the Steelers.
Mr. Oz.
I'll be at the game rooting for my Eagles. Fly, Eagles, fly.
Fly, Eagles,
Thank you
fly.
both so much. This does
Yeah, for those of you who don't know, Eagles they're very strong over here. I'm in Pennsylvania, so I'm not sure if it's considered north or whatever. But I'm like an hour away from Philly, so we like strong Eagles fans here. They are wild. These people love their Eagles. I love them too. I'm not so strong on supporting in Jersey and all that. I'm not one of those guys. But I'll watch their games and their highlights and like, yo, these guys are really good. They are amazing right now. Steelers, I don't know, not so much. I like their colors though. Anyway.
Thank our candidates for being with us, Mr. Fetterman and Mr. Oz, and for all of you at home who have been watching. Thank you so much.
And we want to thank our team at WHTM for hosting us at their studios tonight. Remember, voters, that Election Day is just 2 weeks from today on Tuesday, November 8th. Thanks for being with us, and have a great night.
Beyond the shadow of a doubt, I don't want to speak extra nonsense here. It's just Dr. Oz has my vote on this argument. He says everything I needed to hear. It's just everything is perfectly in line with my perspective and my values. And I will say Dr. Oz, he's got my vote. So 2 weeks from now, certainly, I'm going to make my way to the polls and vote for the guy who has convinced me with his argument, and that's Dr. Oz. I have to give him credit here. Well done. Great discussion. Great debate. John Fetterman will be kept in my prayer, and I'm hoping that he fully recovers from the stroke and gets back to take care of his family and do the things that he loves to do. But as far as being in the position of leadership at this state of his life, I am not convinced that he's the guy that I will want to see in that position. That's my thought on that. You let me know what you think. I could be completely wrong, but this is where I stand for now. So, how about you do me a favor? Do me a big favor. Like and subscribe to the page. Click the bell icon for more of my notification upload. I love when you guys do this because that's kind of how we get these videos up and running in the algorithm. I hope I didn't make this too long, an hour and 50 minutes. I think that's more than enough. I'll edit some of it and then put it back up or something. I guess maybe if I could do that. All right, friends, thank you so much for listening. If you have any question, make sure you shoot me an email, check me out on Discord, and check out the links we have below. We have our merch and other things going on down there. We have our Bible studies coming up as well at the end of this week. If you're looking for Bible studies and personal questions you have, just get in touch with us as well. Get in touch with me and we'll stay connected as well. If you have any other questions, please let me know. I believe, he said I believe so many different times, but here, let me close up with this. I almost didn't give you a scripture. This is the best thing we can do for political leaders. These are the best thing I can do for these men. 1 Timothy chapter 2, verses 1 and 3, he says, I exhort therefore that first, all supplication, prayers, intercession, and giving of thanks be made for all men. So there need to be some prayers, intercession, and supplication be made for every man, right? For kings. So we can put president here. For kings and for all that are in authority, that we may lead a quiet and peaceable life in all goodness and honesty. So this is good and acceptable in the sight of God, our Savior. So we need to be praying for the kings. We need to be praying for those in authority. Why? Because if they do well, we do well. Our families benefit from that. That we may lead a quiet, peaceable life in all goodness and honesty. So pray for these men that God will use them to bless and keep and protect his people, especially in these crazy and tumultuous times. Until next time, and as always, remember, friends, to look unto Jesus, to live by faith. What do we have below? Yes, God bless you, my friend. I'm registered nonpartisan. Okay. Hey, nonpartisan, but if you stand for faith, family, freedom, you got my vote. There. That's it. That's all I want. Faith, family, freedom. Don't tread on me. And I'll be just fine with you. I have no other problems with you. Uh yeah, very unprofessional. They were cutting him off several times. Yeah, very unprofessional. But I can understand. I think John Fetterman's condition has a lot to do with this. Thank you so much for checking this out with me, guys. I thank you for watching. Appreciate your comments and thought and perspective as well. Yeah, that's my stand on that. Remember, and as always, to look unto Jesus, to live by faith. Have a good one. Bye.